introduction with our pressure work. So she kind of has a tendency to sometimes push through just normal leash pressure. So we're just looking to give ourselves and Luna a little bit more clarity in our leash work so that we don't end up with kind of this situation. So sometimes we'll recommend this tool as an alternative to using a prong collar. It does take a little bit more time to introduce, and for a lot of dogs it can be a little bit more stressful in the introduction phase. Let's go. Sit. And so we don't use it heavily in our programs, but we do for the right dogs that typically are not reactive, don't suffer from a crazy amount of anxiety. We typically will have this option on the table. You can use this tool for dogs that are reactive and for dogs that maybe are struggling with some different issues, but it's just not typically the route that we will choose for those dogs, just because the early work is so intensive just to desensitize the dog to the leash itself. So right now what I'm working on is just building her confidence while wearing it. So for her, we did have some early sessions where we showed a little bit more stress with the pressure. It's a very unnatural feel for the dog to have something applying pressure over the nose like this. So for her, we're just getting her used to that feeling, learning that it's not really going to cause her exceptional distress. It's not going to cause her any sort of harm, but also that she's earning rewards, building confidence. It's really a good thing. So she's still learning what pressure on the collar is asking her to do, especially because it is a very novel feeling compared to anything else that the dog has been introduced to. So for her, mainly all we're using pressure on the leash to ask for is a sit. So let's go. So when I have her kind of working in the heel position, get her used to that feeling of pressure so it's not so alarming when it does happen. Let's go. Good is adding pressure upwards. As soon as she sits, I release that pressure. Good girl. Let's go. And she's just a little bit more comfortable with this. She doesn't love that feeling of pulling into the pressure. So she's a little bit more mindful of the leash. Good girl. Let's go. And the thing that I'm watching out for with her, because I know this is kind of her thing that causes the most stress, good girl, is if she lags behind me, I don't want to add heavy pressure to ask her to move forward. It's kind of a counterbalanced feeling for the dog, because if I'm adding pressure this way, she's feeling it the opposite direction. The pressure is coming down over the nose, and almost pulling her further backward, and so she's getting in this kind of weird conflict where she feels the pressure, but she gets a little panicky about what it is that she's really supposed to be doing with that. Let's go. So usually I'll just encourage my voice. I know this dog and she's very responsive to enthusiasm. Good, yay, good girl. So there I just added a slight little bit of pressure to ask her to turn towards me. Good girl. And followed immediately with food, so that instead of her worrying about it, she's going, ooh, that means good things are coming from the other end of that pressure, rather than, okay, this is just a little bit scary for me because I'm not positive what I'm supposed to be doing and whether this is something I have control over. Yes, and so much of training is just teaching the dog that they do have control over their situation, and that we are predictable in how we respond to the very capable. Good girl. Nice work. And the added benefit of pressure work like this is it just teaches the dog that being under pressure isn't necessarily a bad thing. It that something meaningful and beneficial to them will follow, and it gives them a lot of resilience and a lot more confidence overall. So for her, the next phase when she is gaining some confidence, will be just to start adding a second dog, mainly because that is how we run the day camp program. So I want to be able to use this tool when she's getting a little bit pulley on the leash. And I've got a whole bunch of dogs and I really can't afford to have 5 dogs all pulling at the same time. So on a walk like that, we'll start with it just as a slip leash. And then if I need it, then I can pop it over